Today we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm Nick, and this is Sam.
So
Quality intro right there.
I,
Alrighty.
I, I had to be appropriate.
What drew you to this sport?
I think the challenge, like adrenaline. I remember watching on TV and then watching YouTube and thinking, "Damn, that looks really difficult." But everybody who's doing it looks really badass. I think most guys get drawn into it, right? Like that's how most of us get into it. Like you look at it and you're like, "Wow, that looks like I was like I want to run a waterfall." Like that was.
I didn't, but I'm sure if I didn't know it was a thing until, as I said the last time, someone at church introduced us. So I never really saw it online or anything like that. Because I guess in 2014 was when I started. I wasn't on social media that much, which those were the days. It's probably a lot better for me as well. So I was introduced through a club and through that guy. So I didn't really see it online, and I think for me, what really drew me into it to stay is more of the community, especially through clubs. People were super nice, welcoming, always willing to help out, and always wanting to see you improve and grow as well. And there wasn't really, at least in the beginning, there really wasn't that much drama or politics or anything to deal with that was going to push you away.
Yeah, I think like the politics and like drama aspect of it. Luckily, as of lately, hasn't been too severe. At least in my paddling community, like in my paddling experience. Um, but it can get bad. I know we touched on that last week, but oh man, that can be brutal. Yeah.
It definitely can, especially when people are dating in the kayaking world and things
Mm.
don't end nicely, then drama can start.
But can confirm though, like with my wife boating and paddling, like it is pretty cool to be like the to be the beater couple because I'm gonna be honest, he swims all the time, and then I end up trying to bust my ass out to get out of a boat to help her, and next thing you know, I'm in the water. It's always a good time. So we end up being the beater couple.
The beater couple. Hopefully that reputation doesn't stay for too long.
No, but here's the funny thing is if you get on YouTube, I can send you the link. But there's a funny video of us at Montgomery, where when she gets stressed out, it becomes everyone else's problem, right? And there's a funny video of her like yelling at me while I'm trying to like drain her boat on the side of the run, and she's just like screaming at me. It's like some dude with a GoPro goes by, and it's on YouTube.
Jeez.
After, like I would not want to be that guy.
Everyone's got a GoPro.
Yeah.
That's like a few years back on, I think it was the Upper Gauley. There's this girl who, I think she swam, and people were trying to help her out, and she was getting angry and yelling. It's on YouTube as well, of course it is. And she was just yelling and angry and was like, "My husband will kick your ass," and stuff like that. And I'm like, what? These people are trying to help you out and get your boat over the side or whatever they were doing. I don't remember. But these
Yeah,
people are trying to help you out and be nice. Why are you going to yell at them and try to put them down like that?
I think stress, man. Like this can be a scary sport. I think I think the anxiety and stress sometimes. I mean, I know you know what I'm talking about, but like the tunnel vision that you get sometimes,
Yeah.
the dumping, like people's brains don't always work right, and I think that's why it's so important to boat with like a solid community of boaters that can see past the fog of it all, can do what they need to do for rescues, or even just remind somebody to get their toes up, get their nose up, and embrace the suck.
Yeah, it's definitely stressful, especially right after a swim or an emergency. And that's when people are definitely have their senses heightened or their emotions. So sometimes, especially if you like know how the person operates, maybe just leave them alone for the first 5 minutes after swim, then have a
Yeah,
conversation with them. Because I've definitely gone down the river and someone's trying to be nice and help, but the other person's fine by themselves, and we know they can handle it. But this other person may not understand that and just annoy them and piss them off even more. But then 5 minutes later, they're calmed down, they're fine, ready to go. And I think most people they do mean well, but not
so
everyone operates or responds the same.
and I find, and this may be a little bit off topic, but I find like with female boaters, there's always those male boaters that are like that have this like hero savior complex.
It's
And
simping.
yeah, there's several women that I boat with that are perfectly capable of doing anything themselves. In fact, I would probably count on them to save my ass one day.
Yeah, most of the ones I know are way better than me, and I they'd probably save my ass and beat my ass in kayaking.
Yeah. So, you know, I think not my comment towards me and my wife fighting on the river has nothing to do with her like being a female and me trying to save her. Like she could by all means do anything I was doing, but it was just it was funny how like the GoPro caught us in the
Yeah.
worst. My one GoPro, she throws her paddle to me and it like spears me in the face, busts my nose, and I end up yeah, I get like pushed up and pinned against the wall, and I'm trying to roll back up. It was a nightmare.
It's probably one of those things like when you're a child and your parent tells you something, you just ignore it and you get aggravated. And someone else's parent or someone else tells you the same thing, you're like, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea." It's just
Yeah,
hearing it from your partner or your parent is completely different. So
yeah. This is kind of like this is a sport of hard knocks. A lot of people put a lot of time and effort into it, and so frustration can be a thing. Especially like I'm sure. I mean, you talked about it taking you 3 years to get a solid roll, right? And
yep.
so I can imagine the frustration that came with that. Whenever you're 2 years in, you're wanting to hit whitewater, you're wanting to get out there and experience the sport that you put all this effort into, and it's just not going your way. And there's going to be days on the river where just nothing goes your way. You're going to break paddles. You're going to bust a hole in your boat. You're going to swim and bust your eyebrow open at Teddy, my boy. You know that like obviously you're going to see frustration on the river, and I think as a new paddler, kind of going to lock this back into like paddling communities. I think that don't be afraid when you see that communities are big, people at all different stages of boating. Frustration can run rampant sometimes on the river, just because you want to excel, you want to succeed in this sport, and all your friends might be just absolutely dominating it, while you put in the same seat time and it's just not clicked. But I promise that it will.
Yeah, and everyone's gonna have those days that are frustrating, and it's a high stress sport, so you're going to face those high emotions, whether it's complete joy or just complete frustration and anger. So it's just learning to be more compassionate and patient with people on the water.
So what about you? Has anything come to mind just like in your boating experience that like you've just had a day where you're just like, dude, this is so frustrating. Like I'm really struggling with this. Where you were just kind of at your wits end with it on the river. Can you like think of anything offhand?
I can't think of any specific examples. I'm sure it happened. I mean, I wasn't like super. There's definitely been off days that I can remember, like on the Upper Yacht this past summer. Just some days I was always nervous, mostly about national, even though national's not really that hard of a rapid, and going into the waterfall it easily pushes you out. But I just hate going into that hole and having to fight it,
Yeah,
especially when there's a lot of people there watching. The pressure's kind of on. Um,
yeah, and like it's crazy you say that, but I'm sure that you were watching the Narrows races. What, 2 weeks ago, a week ago? You were watching that, right?
yeah, I was just watching some of the footage from it, mostly just people's lines and their times.
Yeah, and so I was like I was looking at that, man. Having that many spectators can be really intimidating. Like I look at some of these guys, like, and you're watching them give it their all. Like it takes one hell of a boater to get in there and do what they're doing. And they're giving it their all. They're worried about pins. Like I think you and I were saying that what was there, 5 boats that were
Yeah,
pinned?
there's 5 boats pinned.
So that's especially where they were getting pinned is not a very common place, at least in the past, from what I've experienced.
Yeah, from what they wrote on the Narrows group is that was the standard line, but something must have changed.
Yeah. So, I mean, you think about the frustration those guys are going through. I mean, here they are. They're pushing themselves to the limits throughout the rest of the year. They get one chance at this to like when everybody's standing around watching. Like, could you imagine being the boater that got pinned? Like,
Yeah,
damn. And then not to mention like their boat, it's obliterated. Like I was looking at the picture, like the boats just stacked up. It was wild, and I thought about the frustration. That was something that was kind of on my mind this week. because I've been experiencing frustration off the river because of my lack of seat time. I've been very frustrated. Like I work so much. Like how do I take and drive 8 hours to get to the Ocoee or get up into the mountains and boat better stuff whenever I only get 2 days off work and so yeah, frustration in this sport is a common thing and did a lot of self reflecting on that this week.
Yeah, and I think it's good to just kind of expect it and realize you're not the only one who's gonna be feeling that as well. So just being, as I said, patient and compassionate towards others on the river. But some people, they're just gonna be like that all the time. So you just gotta find the people that you enjoy paddling around, that have the skills and the goals that you want, and just surrounding yourself with those people as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would agree with that for sure.
So how do you feel that the whitewater community supports newer boaters?
Oh, that's kind of a challenging question because I think on the vast the vast majority of the community is going to be pretty supportive to new boaters. But I think the better question is like how do we support new
Yeah.
boaters? Because you can say, okay, well, I'll help you find. Like my thing is, I'm good at finding gear for cheap. Like I can help people find gear. I'm always on Facebook Marketplace, looking all over the place, trying to find a good deal on something. In fact, I reached out to you not long ago and was like going to buy a really crappy boat that was just because it was cheap, just so I could goof off in it. And I know you were like, hey, maybe don't do that, but do that. But I think supporting new boaters, I think we should as a community be able to direct them to resources versus just saying this is how I do it. I think that's like a big pride thing for a lot of people where you're like, oh well, I'm not the best at paddle stroke techniques. Let me introduce you to someone else. A lot of boaters or um, a lot of boaters that have been doing it for a while. They'll be like, oh well, this is how I do it. Not this is let me show you somebody who does it better than me. And I think that we sometimes when we're trying to support new boaters, we sometimes might do more damage than we do good.
Yeah, it's really important to throw that ego and that pride away and realize that there's more than one way to do the same thing and different perspectives. Like, you might think your technique is the best, but there's probably someone doing it even better.
Yeah.
And learning from those people. Because I know when I don't know a skill, I'll be honest about it and say, hey, my boofs aren't the best, or whatever the other skills are, I don't know. So I can find someone or find you an answer, but I currently do not have that information. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important just to be able to say that and then direct them where they need to go or to someone they can talk to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then don't be like I'm not ashamed to link other new boaters with new boaters because I think that like new boaters in our community, it can be intimidating when you're boating with a guy who, could cartwheel a creek boat. Like there's
Yeah.
always that good ungodly stuff, and you're like, wow, I'm not that good. I don't really feel like I should be here. I feel like out of my game, like out of my realm here. And so there's nothing wrong with introducing new boaters to other new boaters, which I think is where like the club life comes in, like the club communities really come in handy. We touched on that last week, but um, you know, on the Hawassi, I've got no problem with me and one other solid safety taking two or three new boaters out on that river because it's a pretty pretty forgiving swims, like a great place to learn. And then those guys, after they learn like the basic techniques of a combat role and how to run safety in the bare minimum, then that's probably a pretty safe playground for them, and they'll do a lot of growing there together, and they'll build their own little tribe, and it's kind of a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, then as new people, instead of having someone being like, hey, this is the way you do it, they can just learn and fail and discover together.
Yeah, this I would argue that this sport is probably 95% failure, and then this weird 5% accidental badass success.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I didn't mean to do that, but it sure looked cool.
So let me try to do that again.
So yeah, don't be afraid of the failures. And I think that like boating with other new boaters on really small stuff, or even at like lake roll practice, is a very solid thing because you're not there being afraid that you need to impress. Like just boat.
And that's important too, just getting out on flat water and practicing those skills in a flat environment. You don't need to always be out on whitewater to practice your strokes.
Yeah, and that's like I think that the time that you spend on flat water is probably going to be just as crucial, if not more crucial, than your time on whitewater. It just like I need roll practice so bad right now. I can't stand it. My roll is sloppy. Like I'm surrendering my shoulder too much. But you know how how I could really fix that? Well, I have a pool that's less than 100 yards from my back door. Why am I not out in it? Um, because I really just want to go boat.
Yeah.
I need to.
You just get on flat water and it is boring. It can be really boring, but it's going to get you that better technique. You see all these pros, they're practicing in flat water. They're some of the best and they're still out there on flat water. And whenever you take a course from a school, the first day you're usually out on a lake or on flat water somewhere practicing skills and learning them. They're not taking you out on that white water right away.
Yeah. So whenever whenever you're instructing, whenever you're giving instruction, when at what point are you taking people onto the whitewater, like onto class 1, 2 stuff? Is it you had talked last week, kind of like waiting for the roll, but are you stay pretty solid with that or?
So when I worked for Potomac Paddle Sports, it's yeah, waiting for them to have a role, and that makes sense if you're in a group of like what we had, like 10 people, because you
Mhm.
don't just want everyone swimming and having to fetch boats. Then you only got 4 hours, so you're wasting everyone's time and money that they invested. So in that situation, it makes sense. But if I'm doing one on one, probably I'd spend like maybe the first day on flat water doing some stuff, but getting them on whitewater as soon as possible because
Yeah.
that's where you're going to learn the most is in the moving environment. That's why you got into whitewater kayaking and not recreational kayaking.
Yeah.
And if it's class 1 too, it's pretty safe for pretty much anyone. And it also depends on just their personal comfort level.
Yeah, and that's like personal comfort level. It's kind of a big thing in this sport. I know I've been pushed out of my comfort zone several times, um, and it didn't end too well. Or there's always been that boater that knew that my comfort zone was a bit too small, and they gave me a nudge, and I realized, oh, I can actually do this. Like I was ready for that. So I think we keep going, we keep kind of spinning back towards what we talked about last week, but like finding that good boating community, finding those strong boaters to boat with that are very knowledgeable. Yeah, that's a big part of like moving out of that flat water zone and into.
It's super important to find those people who are way better than you to show you different skills and different moves. And once again, I'm always gonna shout out to Don. He really pushed me this past summer, getting on the upper yacht with him and doing harder lines rather than just standard ones to push my skills. And then also getting out on different rivers that I wasn't sure if I was ready for because I have the skills to do a lot bigger rivers, but it's that confidence that I definitely lack. Um, so I usually go to other people and be like, "Hey, this is the river I want to do. Do you think I can do it?" And if one or two people I trust says yeah, and then I'm like, "Okay, I can probably do it." And I'm probably gonna be nervous as hell, but at least I have that confidence from other people that, "Hey, yeah, you can do it," and I'll be like, "Okay, sure, let me put some blind faith in you because I trust you."
Yeah, and you're always going to have like funny stories with that kind of stuff too. You trust those guys, like you might end up in a place where you take a funny swim, a nasty swim. Wasn't it? Was it you the other day that like posted on Facebook? It was like, "What's a funny story and how you got your river nickname?" Was that you?
Yes, it was.
Nickname.
You just cut out. What was that?
What's your river nickname?
I don't
What
have a
is it?
river nickname.
Okay, so you don't have like you haven't made your story yet.
No.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you. So mine's peaches.
Why? Because you got a
And
nice ass.
so we uh we were boating one time up in Virginia with a friend of mine, and I took a nasty swim. It was like summertime boating, so I was just wearing swim shorts. I wasn't even wearing a shirt underneath my PFD. I was just like rednecking it out, like um. Jesus, my wife sneezed. Anyway, so like rednecking it out. Took a nasty swim. Boat went God knows where. I swam to a rock in the middle of the river and like hopped up on it to like catch my breath for a second. And when I did, I like stood up. I had like my bathing suit was gone, bro. And I stood up on the rock. Everybody just said that all they could see were my balls hanging between my legs on the rock. So peaches it was.
That's
I,
awesome. Maybe not much for you, but
oh, never found those shorts, so I just boated naked the rest of the day.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I can't say I've had any stories like that.
You're missing out. A good name.
Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. Do you have any memories or experiences with where the kayaking community came together to support a cause or a person?
Yeah, I mean, with that being said, when do they not? Um,
True.
I mean, frankly, there's just so many that I don't think you could even list all of them, and they're all like I've never seen a bad cause where the communities come together. I've seen I've seen boating companies donate boats for raffles. I've for sick and injured boaters. I've seen the community come together, and when I was first kind of new to boating when I was a teenager, I like saw the community come together multiple times and do like Thanksgiving dinners for the homeless and stuff, river cleanups. The community's constantly coming together, and they're always there to help each other out. I find that like even with new boaters specific, like with gear. I mean, you're gonna go to role practice. You're gonna make friends, and people are just gonna give you shit.
Yep.
Like you'll see. I don't expect it, but just know that it will happen. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times I've just given shit away. Like, oh well, I have spare gear from last year that I bought. I thought I was gonna like it, didn't really end up liking it. I could sell it on Facebook Marketplace for $100, or I could give it to a friend and a new boater and help them out. So like I've given away several like our fleece suits and other things just because it's like that's what we do, man. If if I saw you drowning on the river, I'd save your ass. If I saw you
Aw.
like if I saw you freezing, I would give you pogies. Like we'll make it work. Like the point is that we're all out there, and we're pretty good community at making sure that that happens. Whether you're sick and you need help with finances, like I've seen so many just like great resources come together within this community.
Yeah, I've seen people start GoFundMe's when people drown on the river. People organize like memorial paddles, and some of
Mm-hmm.
them they even do it every year, which is great. Um, and as you mentioned, river cleanups people will do organize those. There's a few nonprofits like First Ascents, which takes cancer patients and health workers out on kayaking expeditions. Then you have Team River Runner, which takes veterans out onto the water and gets them into the sport. I think those are the two nonprofits I can think of in the sport.
Yeah, I was watching this YouTube video a while back, and I couldn't tell you what club specific it was. But there's a club out in Colorado, and this guy was like had terminal cancer. His dream was to kayak over a waterfall. He had terminal cancer. He only had a few weeks left to live. He had very little energy. They wanted to make it happen for him, and they knew they had very little time to do it. And so, just like the turnout on that was insane. I mean, you had professional boaters flying to Colorado to make this dream happen for this guy. I mean, you had people scouting their local rivers to try to find the right waterfall and the right flow. Um, I thought it was like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. They ended up getting this guy in a boat. They, taught him how to wet exit because they didn't have time to teach him the role. He just couldn't get it. So they had 2 days to make it happen. They found like a 20-foot fall, which is pretty decent fall,
Yeah.
and into it. They had more support boaters at the bottom than I'd ever seen before. It was awesome. And I think that as a community, we should all strive to be that and to do that for each other. Um, Even to people who are not necessarily in our communities. Like that guy had never boated a day in his life. He just said that was a dream of his, and we made it happen because that's what we do. Like this is what we do. And I think that it would be a really sad day to see a community that doesn't come together, support each other, and to make these dreams come true. Because at the end of the day, we all had that dream. We all climbed in a boat for the first time. We all um, watched it somewhere. We sat on a bank somewhere, and we all thought, "Wow, wouldn't that be cool to do it?" Now we're all doing it. So it would be a sad day that we turn our backs to people outside of our community and to new boaters.
Yeah, and none of us would be in it without other people.
Oh yeah, I mean the list is a mile long for me of people who pushed me into the sport. Probably when I first got into it, my friend Will. He's no longer with us, but like what a phenomenal boater he was. What a great role model. He took a 16-year-old kid who didn't have much going on in life, didn't have a whole lot to offer the world, and he just kind of showed me the love of boating. Um, he gave me a lot of love. We traveled together. Like I got a lot from that friendship. Probably more so than I did my own family at the time. I mean, this community just has really embraced me all my life, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, it becomes your family.
Yeah.
That's why I refer to certain people as like, oh, you're the river mom, you're the river uncle, stuff
Mhm.
like that. You
I,
just meet such great people.
yeah, yeah, and that's the thing, man. It's just like this whole, when you and I first started talking about this podcast, it was for new boaters. Like our focus was going to be new boaters. We'll probably have some guests come on and stuff, and talk about things that are maybe a little bit further down the line. But the kind of people that this community and this sport attract, um, for the most part, are amazing people, and I'm just like really proud to be a part of it, and I'm really proud to even be able to do this podcast with you. I mean, without this community, you and I would have never met. We'd be perfect strangers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely make so many friends over
Oh,
just something like Facebook.
and it's like these are people that you'll talk to the rest of your life. Like you just will.
Yep. Like
So
what?
even if your political standings are set or are different, or there might be cultural differences, but like I think it's awesome because when you're on the river,
It
all that
doesn't
just
matter.
it doesn't. I think a cool thing is I've seen like a lot of like boaters of different races coming together lately, and that's huge because when I first got into the sport, like to see a black person on the river, that was insane. Like it just didn't happen, and now I'm seeing it so much, and it's so cool, man. Um, just like the community is growing into so many different cultural aspects. It's I'm super stoked about it.
And when you mentioned earlier about the Green Narrows race and seeing all those people, it just shows how much the sport's growing and how many people come out that aren't even running the river and they're there to support other people that are.
Right. That was like it's like it's almost like building its own in a way. It's like it's almost like a religion, and it's hard to explain to new boaters, but I mean that river is people's church. That's where they go to repent. That's where they go to blow off the week. That's where they go to cry. You're going to see people laughing. You're going to see brutal failures and successes. You're going to learn a lot of life lessons around a lot of good people. So, like when it comes to new boaters and young boaters, I'm stoked to have them because I remember like as a young guy, it was such a like my life could have gone a lot of different ways, and I thank this community a lot for being able to put the time and effort into me and actually show me right from wrong. And it's, I mean, there's nothing more valuable to me. I think this is great.
Yeah, I feel that because it helps you steer yourself away from other bad habits you might have gotten into, but you just distracted yourself with kayaking instead.
And then like not to just keep going on, but then like you look at like different communities. Like they've recently there's like a Facebook page for like sober boaters. That used to not be a part of this community. Like everybody was smoking or drinking on the river, and it's like now you've got a whole community that's starting to focus on, hey, we're working with sobriety. This is a great way to vent that out. We want to do it in a community together and grow together. So like I've been working on my sobriety for a while. My wife is as well. Like I think that's great, man. So it's just like I even feel more at home.
Yeah, that's awesome. And going back to the green again, it's really cool because you see in those videos of like when someone does mess up and they get pinned or they get stuck in a hole, like people are cheering in the moment, but as soon as like people need to actually jump into action, their safety crews there, people start cheering that they're being saved and doing a good job getting out or whatever happens. People are just so
Yeah,
supportive and cheering about it.
yeah. I was watching one pin. There was like a guy in a blue dry suit. Anyway, he was really putting himself out there to help these boaters like all day long. Yeah, like people don't understand. As a new boater, you won't understand, but that is an exhausting job to have. To be out there like constantly watching, constantly being ready to hop in, do whatever rescues you need to do. And this guy did it all day, and he was killer at it. And so, like in a way, we all kind of need to salute him because he stepped up and he could have taken a break and let somebody else do it, but he was pretty flawless with it. So instead of taking the risk, he knew he could do it, and he stayed right there all day. It was crazy.
Oh, I bet it's exhausting. Just the hike down there is exhausting, and then going to have to do all that, then packing up all your gear, and then having to hike it back out after a whole day of just rescuing people.
Hmm.
And I've heard that it's usually similar, the same people every year that are helping out on the safety crews. So it just goes to show like how dedicated people are to helping out.
Yeah, I think that that's. I'm really like. I think that that's going to be the future of my boating. Is like I really want to get more into the safety aspect of it. Like everywhere, everywhere that I can grow in it. That's what I'd like to do. Lately, I've been kind of like, you know, going down the rabbit hole on like helmet testing within our. It's crazy, man, because like they're not. I mean, what you got? You got Sweet Protection. They're pretty much the only kayaking helmet that is actually being tested, and
Yeah.
that's just they don't only produce kayaking helmets. So, like, I mean, this kind of stuff's pretty wild. I think that that's the safety side of things is probably where I'm going.
Yeah, we should find someone who is involved in a lot of the safety stuff and have them on.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah. I also I talked to Sam about possibly coming on and talking to us about like Soul, and then they also sell jacks and all kinds of stuff. Just talking about like basic boat design, and then like what he thinks about beginner boats being that's what he does. He sells boats. So I thought that that would
Oh,
be pretty
okay.
cool.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
awesome. It took me like I've been paddling almost 10 years, so like 9.5 years to know what edges and rails and all that stuff are, and I still get confused about exactly what it is because people
Hmm.
will call rails edges, people will call edges rails or chines, and it's just so
Hmm.
intermixed of what people refer to things as.
Yeah, we should do like a whole podcast on just like boats for beginners, and that's what we could call
Yeah,
it.
definitely. That would be awesome. And honestly, it doesn't matter if this is just for beginners. This is for anyone. Anyone can always learn.
I think anyone can learn with beginners.
But yeah,
You hop into some of these role practice with beginners, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, my role ain't shit.
yeah,
I need up because the instructor's sitting here telling beginner stuff that you've not even thought about." You know what I'm saying? Or you're gonna hop in that first rescue class with a beginner and realize, damn, I didn't learn any of this the first time I went
yep.
through. What
It's
so
that's why it's so good to take classes like Swift Water Rescue, instructor, trainer, stuff like that. Just the more you can learn, the better, and the more people are gonna trust you and want to paddle with you.
yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: is like there's always going to be a need for swiftwater rescue guys and instructors. Like you may not be the best boater in the world, but if you're confident enough to go set up during these events and provide the like you as yourself as a resource, like you will be used. Like if you can prove that you can do it, they'll be more than happy to have you. So like that's huge. That's very valuable. Probably one of the most valuable things in the community.
Yeah, events are always looking for people to set safety and help out, like Cheat Fest, Gully Fest, Green Arrows. All those events are always looking for people to have the skills to help out. And you don't want to volunteer if you don't have the skills, or else you can just make situations worse.
Yeah,
Nothing's worse than having 5 people throwing ropes out on the water and creating even worse hazards.
yeah.
How often do you see people mixing drugs on the river?
Yeah, a bit too much, personally. I think too often. Um, love my stoners. I love you guys, but I have to be frank with you. Like, if you're baked to shit, your response time is incredibly low. It just is. I mean, it's proven. You can look at several different studies that have been done. I would recommend a lot of DUI studies because it talks about reaction time. There's not frankly there's just not a place on any river class 1 to class 5 where you should be reacting slower. I think it makes you a danger to yourself, makes you a danger to the people around you. I think save that until you get off the river kind of thing.
Yeah, you need to be focused and in the moment and being able to react quickly to things. And there are people I know who they can be high as hell and they are on point, but that's probably an exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
So it's just best that people save that shit for afterwards.
Now
Because
when it comes
I on this last summer, like when you go to National Falls on the Upper Yock, Most people are just sitting there smoking weed. Most people don't even have their throw rope with them. They're just watching. So if anyone needs to be helped, you're just gonna have a bunch of slow reactions that have to go back to their boats to get their gear to help out. So it's just sad to see stuff like that. And I see it more in higher level rivers, which to me makes no sense. It's
Yeah.
like, why are you on these class 4 rivers, high as hell, and then wondering why you're swimming all the time?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'd definitely rather see people smoking than just drinking all the time, which I don't really see many people drinking that much. But it's also because I just tend to avoid those people and paddling with people like that. I'd rather just not see it. And I've spent so much time paddling with clubs that just don't allow it at all. And it's kind of what I prefer because I don't partake and I don't think it's safe for others to on the river.
Yeah, there's and I think it gives you kind of a bad rap too, because you're gonna see that like, um, there's a particular club. I'm not gonna name them, but it's pretty well known that when they go to different events, they get really fucking trashed. And so what they give themselves a bad rap because, let's just say on a hypothetical, you're boating down the river and take a swim, and next thing you know, this beautiful river that everybody works hard to clean up has 40 beer cans floating down it because you've just been dropping your beer cans in your boat all day, and you're at a pretty public event that's taking place, and everybody sees that. Well, you're probably not going to be welcomed back the next year, and it's you're partying all night, you're keeping people up. These some of these big events like you're going to see a lot of these athletes. They take it very serious. So just kind of read a room when it comes to some of that.
Yeah, you're gonna ruin it for everyone else. It's not about you. It's about everyone else. Like, it sets a bad rep for whitewater kayakers as a whole. Just being obnoxious. Especially, we're not the only ones on these rivers. There's rafters. There's fishermen on the side. Like, you're gonna ruin it for everyone else. And you might, and if and a lot of the deaths, not really on whitewater as much, but more on flat waters from people just being trashed.
Mm-hmm.
And the more this sport grows, the more common stuff like things like that is going to be, and it's just going to set a really bad reputation and
Mm-hmm.
cause a lot of problems. And when people drown on the river, accidents happen. It just makes it harder for access to these rivers. Because the government likes to paint things with a broad brush. Oh, one person out of a million that use this, we're gonna punish everyone.
Yeah, and that's like another thing is be respectful, like be very respectful to all on the river. And what I mean that is you and that fisherman that's weighed out and he's out trout fishing, you guys may not have anything in common other than that river. And what you don't realize is the state and federal government care nothing about boaters. But you know what they do care about? Outdoorsmen. They care about those guys that are fishing. They care that river has water for those guys that are
Yep.
fishing. The federal gives out grants to those guys to make sure there's fish in those rivers
Because
to
they
keep
have
up.
the money.
Yeah, because those are the guys that have the money, not us. So I think, like especially like on the Nanahala and on the Ocoee, like be super friendly, be super respectful. Because if it weren't for all of us as a river community coming together, there would be nothing. We would not have any water. All the rivers would be dammed up all the time. That's they would just do nothing but hydropower off of them. Like that's you wouldn't have a river to boat on if it weren't for everyone coming together, the rafters, the boaters, the fishers. If it weren't for the photographers that were coming out,
Yep.
habitat. So like don't leave your trash. Don't trash a river. Um, don't be rude to the other people swimming and fishing and boating in the rivers. Just share. I think a lot of times, like as boaters, we get to be like, well, this is whitewater, this is us. There's a rafting company that uses this all day long. Like this is for us. No, it's not.
It's
It's
for
not for you.
everyone.
Yeah,
It's more of a privilege that can
yeah.
be taken away at any time if the government wants to.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but up your way, like in Virginia, I don't remember if it's Virginia or North Virginia, but like it's been incredibly hard for boaters over the past 10 years or so because of all the accidents and just honestly just immaturity that's taken place on some of the rivers
Right.
that have caused local government or like state and local government to make it a citable offense for you to be boating.
I personally haven't experienced any access issues, thankfully.
Mhm.
Um, but I've heard there's like a certain county, I think it's Montgomery County near DC, where you're not
Mhm.
supposed to be paddling on any of the rivers there. And I think that's
Yeah,
because they think if boater, this is what I heard in the Hammer Factor podcast, because they think if kids or other people that aren't experienced in whitewater see people on these rivers, they're gonna want to try it too. But they're like class two rivers. They're not that dangerous for people who are experienced.
yeah.
Um, and most they're out of the way anyway, so no one's gonna see people kayaking them. So I don't know why they believe in that bullshit, but
You
something
know, and that's
happened where that's the way it is there.
if you look back at boating from like the '90s and early 2000s. I mean, like those guys were like pioneering the sport, but not just that, but they were fighting for our rights on these rivers.
Yeah,
They were they were fighting to make sure that mine and your generation was going to have a river to boat on. And when you go to these rivers and you get sloppy drunk, you are leaving your trash there. You're acting like a jackass. It hurts. It hurts their rep. I mean, it hurts everything that they fought for, and honestly, hurts the community. So I think as a community, we should hold each other accountable, and especially with our new guys, just kind of like not like breathe down their neck, but just be an example. Be
yeah.
an example. But what we
That's
should be doing.
that's the best thing you can do is just be an example instead of just talking the talk, walk the walk. And I think another thing that I know have definitely done is like not trying to exclude other types of craft. Like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people say like, "Oh, they're wreck kayakers," as like in a demeaning way. Um, to be like, "Oh, they're not as good as us." And I know I've used it in a way like that as well. So I know it's a struggle for me. I'm just realizing like these rivers are for everyone, and being there, watching out for other people, even if they're not in your group, watching out for rafts, watching out for wreck kayaks, especially wreck kayaks because a lot of recreational kayakers aren't as experienced and may not know. I don't think people are stupid. I just think they're more ignorant than anything. They just don't know. So if you take that time to educate people, if you see someone on the river and they're not wearing a PFD, a helmet, whatever safety gear you think is necessary, just educate them. And if they react poorly, well, then that's on them. You did the best you
And,
can do.
you will see people that are not serious about it will react poorly.
Mm,
Be somebody's Uncle Bob out there on the river who went rafting with the Boy Scouts back in the '80s, and he thinks that was the end all that there is. Dude's on the Ocoee without even a helmet on. You know what I'm saying? Like there's always
yep.
going to be that, and you can how you approach that's going to be you have to be very careful, because people are going to just get their feelings hurt. That's just what it
Yep.
is. Don't be a jackass on purpose, but especially when you're talking about including all crafts, like don't shit on rafters, dude. Like I see boaters doing all the time. They're like, "Oh, I'm just trying to surf this wave, and a raft just ate me up." Well, you're the one going the wrong direction. So like, we were at Montgomery last weekend, and I was just like surfing around in this wave, and another boater was coming, and it was a little bit keepy. I was trying to fight to get back out of it to get out of his way, but it just didn't happen in time. And I just was like, I slapped the front of my deck and was like, "Come on, just go on over me." And me and him both ended up upside down. We both kicked up, and we were laughing about it earlier. But I can't get to go. Well, I was surfing that way. Well, guess what? I'm not the only one there. So
Yep. There's always the argument between people of who has the right of way. And I
no,
and I think generally it's the person coming downstream because if you're surfing something, you usually have more control. Um, but also just depends. Like if you're on the river with your friend group and it's only you guys, and like you make your own rules then. Like if you're surfing and you know your friend just likes to bomb down and it's a wave that if you get off it, you might not be able to get back, then just keep surfing. Just make those rules and communicate it beforehand.
I think another big thing is like eddy control and new boaters. I mean, heck, even me sometimes like when you're bumping down the river, moving pretty fast, you see that eddy that everybody's gathered in. There's a feature past that eddy that needs a little bit of guidance. and then that new guy blows into the eddy and just like starts playing bumper boats. Well, that's not his fault.
Yeah, they're
You know,
new.
yeah, they're new. Not just that, but I mean, sometimes those eddies are packed in tight. It's you're gonna play bumper boat for a second. If you're so afraid of getting pushed out of an eddy, which you shouldn't be, if you're so afraid of getting pushed out of an eddy, well then probably you've been sitting in it too long and you need to go ahead and scoot anyway.
Yeah. And when I was teaching people with Potomac passports on flat water, they'd always bump into each other, especially as new boaters, and I'd be like, guys, it's part of the sport. You're going to hit people. You're going to run into people. It's just plastic. You're not going to
Yeah,
dent it hitting someone.
no, I mean, and you'll see people that are like, oh well, I can't believe he ran into me. He blistered my fingernail. My fingernail's going to come off now. It's like he pinched my hand in between the boats. It's like, whoops, you probably should find another sport if that's the end all of your day.
Yeah, most 99.9% of people aren't doing it on purpose. They're not trying to cut you off or get in your way on purpose.
No,
They're
yeah,
just out of control or might be on a new river and they're nervous, uncomfortable, or just over their head.
yeah. My wife, she like this was probably 2 or 3 trips ago, and if any of those guys are watching it, are bad. But we've only been able to boat at Montgomery lately, and the eddies there are kind of wild. They're super recirculating. They're hard to stay in. You really like with the surges of the water pumps, like it can shove you out of an eddy or shove you into a wall. Like it's just they're kind of aggressive. She came down, and there's a particular place where there's like a beach on River Right, and that beach is like an eddy in itself. She came down, was bumping along, dove off into the eddy, but there was a surge, so it kind of gave her more momentum than she was expecting, and she like plowed into like 3 boaters. Well, she was like super like nervous about it. She's like, I hope I didn't make them mad, and I was like, so what if you did? Like if you made them mad, like that's the law of the eddy. Like other boaters are coming. You might even have a raft come in on top of you. You should be expecting it. Um, I think that kind of goes back to how we treat new boaters. There's nothing wrong with even an experienced boater blowing into an eddy and bumping into you. And if you're so closed doors to new people into your little group into that eddy, once again, it's just like this is going to be a really uncomfortable sport for you.
Yeah, just forgive and forget and move on.
Yeah, for sure.
Because everyone has ran into people. It's like if you haven't, then you probably it's your first day on the water.
It's scary when you first start boating. You feel like you have no control. I mean, I know you were there. I was there. You're going down whitewater. You're spinning. You don't know why. The boat's literally just spinning in circles. Which, by the way, if you guys are listening and you don't know, it's probably because your bulkhead's too tight or too loose. You're not balanced out very well in your hips, and you're shifting weight to one side more, a little bit heavier. But regardless, you don't know that. You're spinning in circles. You feel like you have no control. Every eddy is sticky. Every current is sticky. You're dropping edges left and right. Bumping into somebody is the last thing on your mind, but when you do it, you always feel super shitty. You're like, oh, did I do something
Yeah,
wrong?
I was gonna say most people feel bad when it happens.
I couldn't tell you, I remember when I was like 17, I was boating on the Ocoee. I was in a new boat. I think it was like a Wave Sport Godzilla. I don't know if you remember them or not. They're really old boats, man.
You're aging
Um,
yourself, even though you're only 2 years older.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I didn't have a ton of control. I was a bit over the weight limit on it. A pretty slicey boat, really fast boat. And I just remember like coming into Hell's Hole, just trying to punch Hell's Hole and then get past it and eddy out, and absolutely running the nose of my boat on top of this dude underneath his chin and about knocking him the fuck out, drug him out of his boat and everything. I felt terrible, man. Luckily, he was a good sport. I just remember him coming up with like a bloody mouth and was laughing his ass off. He was like, that yeah, it was, but and that kind of stuff's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I couldn't even. I mean, it's happened to me countless times, whether it was a raft or another boat. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's like my first time on the upper yacht. I was in a walk gangsta. That boat was way too big for me. Probably shouldn't have been on the river. I'm coming down Charlie's Choice, and I think I cut off someone, and they were like yelling at me. I thought they were yelling at someone else. I wasn't even paying attention to it. So, but then we get down to National Falls. That's my first time running it. I go down, do a shitty booth, get stuck in the little eddy on the right side. My friend didn't leave any space, comes down, nails me in the face, Good thing I had a full face on. And then the person behind him didn't leave that much space. So then my friend who boofed me ends up getting boofed by someone else. And we got three people in that. Because it's just people that are on a river they may not be, should not be on. Boats are too big, especially beginners. You don't know what boat's going to work for you until you try a bunch of things. So a lot of
Mhm.
people just listen to what their friend recommended or what they found on Google instead of trying stuff. So they're gonna
Mhm.
probably be in boats that are just way too big, especially as a beginner. They want to be in the stuff they think might be more stable rather than something that might actually work better for
And
them.
that's where demo days for new boaters are huge. Before you just go out and buy a boat, look at your local boating stores, boating shops, and find demo days. They're going to do them.
Mm-hmm.
Going to be clubs that are going to be willing to let you demo, but like people are going to let you get in a pool in their boat and see how comfortable you are, what you need to do. But um, I recently bought that Soul Bigfoot. I wanted to demo it. Was like just chomping at the bit to see what it was like to get in it. My boy Sam brought it all the way down to Montgomery for me. We caught in there. I demoed it. I made a great purchase, but I also, like, while I was boating it, I was thinking, I need to change this. I need to outfit this. Where like a new boater would have just hopped in that boat and was like, it is what it is. I'm just going to have to paddle it.
Yep.
I can tell you, like, I don't know why, but I struggled rolling it. It was like, it was one of those boats that was just kind of hard for me to roll. And I think that, like, oh well, that's because of my knees. But a new boater might not know that, and they might think, oh well, all boats are this hard to roll. Well, no, that's not the case. So look out for your demo days.
Yeah, just try different stuff. It's like I was in my Antics 1.0 for I don't know, maybe 2 years, and I just got used to it being uncomfortable, my legs going numb. Then I tried a remix this past summer, or not a remix, rewind a dagger, and I was like, why am I torturing myself like this? Why not get a boat that's actually comfortable and I'll enjoy being in? So I didn't get a rewind, but I sold my Antics, just used my playboat, and just got a Nirvana recently, and hopefully that's awesome.
So I think that's something kind of embarrassing to admit for me, but like when you're talking about like making boats comfortable and not going numb. So my mother-in-law is a chiropractor, and they came down to visit a while back, and they went and like rafted at Montgomery. We were boating, and I talked about how, like, well, sometimes my left leg from the knee down goes numb, and it can be very painful. And then like when I get out of my boat and try to stand up, my knee buckles and I almost fall. Like, and she like brought it up. She's like, "Oh well, you're pinching a nerve. Something's too tight."
Mm-hmm.
And I always want to be tight. Like I want everything to like react with speed. Like I want to be super tight. And yeah, that's your goal is to be pretty snug. You want it to react with you. But what I was doing was I was tightening my back band down too tight, and then also my hip pads were too tight on my hips.
Yeah.
So in my old wave sport recon, I like adjusted those two things, and I stopped using the back bend to support my abs and started using my abs a little bit more and working my abdominal, and realized it was like, oh well, because I was trying to cheat and use my back band to keep me upright instead of using my core, it was pinching nerves, and I've never had another problem since. And it was huge. It was like, ah, oh, boom, that was it.
Yeah, that's like I had the same issue in my Rockstar. And what I kept doing was moving the hip pads back and forth. I never even thought of moving them up or down. And then, like we mentioned before earlier, like just listening to what newer boaters have to say. Some newer boater was like, hey, move them up. And I was like, oh, never considered that. And I
Mm-hmm.
did. And now I don't lose feeling in my legs in my Rockstar.
Yeah, and so for some of those new guys that are out there that are listening, and you start looking at like boat outfitting on your hip pads, you'll realize with Jackson, Piranha, Wave Sport, Liquid Logic, a lot of these, a lot of these boat manufacturers give you the ability. It's Velcro on the back a lot of times, and so you can move that pad up and down to better fit you. And if you don't think about it, like if you don't think outside the box for a second, you're not going to realize that because in your head you're like, I'm going to make it fit that Velcro perfectly. It has to be perfectly in that little Velcro spot. Well, no, they've made it to where you can move it forward, backwards, up, and down. So like that, when it comes to boat outfitting, those hip pads and that back band are crucial. You don't want them too tight. But you also don't want them too loose. They need to be positioned properly. And if you're not sure how to do that, feel free to reach out to a boater who's been boating for a while, especially one that looks comfortable, because odds are he's figured it out.
And going back to where I said admit your weaknesses, outfitting is my one of my weaknesses.
Mine too, man.
Never
Mine
been
too.
very good at it, and I think a lot of it just comes down to laziness
Yep, lack of.
of not wanting to take the time to carve out foam and make it fit. And foam's
Mhm.
pretty expensive, so I don't want to go out there buy a bunch of foam, carve it wrong, and then have to get more.
Well,
Um,
just that you're gluing foam in, and then if it's not just right, you're gonna have to rip it all back out. Then
yeah,
you're gonna have to get glue back out of your boat. So it can be kind of like it can be one of those things where you dread it. One thing I've kind of learned over the years is just like get a case of beer, invite some of your boating friends over, some of your experienced boating friends, and then be like, look, I'll buy beer and pizza if you guys give me some knowledge on how to outfit this boat. And odds are you're going to have three guys that are 3 beers deep who are just eager to help and full of pizza, and you guys are going to have a great time. You're going to outfit a boat, and then your next year or two in that boat on the river is going to be drastically better for what the cost of a case of beer and some pizza.
yeah.
So
So yeah, just reaching out to your community and people that know more than you, because no one's gonna be a master at every skill. So just find those. It's like running a business. You want to find a team of people who are good at one thing that you can always go to with questions regarding that particular skill.
exactly, yeah, and like we keep going back to this, but this is not a sport for prideful people. It's just not. I played rugby in college. I can tell you that like I hated asking for advice because like that's a sport for prideful people. But if you're prideful in this sport, you're gonna most likely gonna get hurt or you're gonna hurt someone else. So leave that shit on the bank when you hop in that boat.
Yeah, and something we all struggle with. I don't think that pride goes away completely. Maybe it
No.
does. Maybe it doesn't. But it's something we definitely all struggle with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
One thing I struggle with in regards to pride is when people ask questions I don't know, because then it makes me question my own skills and abilities and confidence. Because I'm like, I don't know, but I feel like I should have an answer. But it's okay not to have an answer for everything.
Well, like
It's okay
you
not
posted.
to know, because then you can just refer them to someone who does know, or look up that information and then learn it, and now you do know.
Yeah, like you posted that video today about like the different paddle strokes and not using your core and paddling with your arms. And like I'm guilty of that, and I know that I am because I've seen like I've watched some of the videos that other people have taken of me boating, and I use my arms way too much, and I'm not pulling myself in with my core, and that's why my boof is weak because I'm not working my core. And so then I think about that, and I was just man enough to admit it to you and to like other boaters, like my friends. I was just like, my comment was, "Hey, I need to work on this," and I'll probably end up taking more videos, or if not, like I'm hoping that this next spring, setting up a time to come up and work with you, and just like getting some pointers on that because my booth has been extremely weak, and it used to not be. I think I just got lazy.
Yeah, I don't know if my boof's good or not. I don't really have anyone commenting on it. So I assume it's not bad, but
Mm-hmm.
it would be good to like get video of it or have someone who has a good booth to actually tell me, because I wouldn't know how to instruct like someone to do a booth.
But that's also it's kind of it's a hard thing to instruct because if you don't have the facilities to
Yeah.
practice what all you're doing is like like you really need like a small fall or something that you can just practice and practice and
Yeah,
practice.
or a whitewater center that has boofing potential. But I'm not
Yeah, there's
sure many whitewater centers do they have lots of places to boof?
yeah, like at Montgomery there's one booth line that I can think of offhand. There's like the competition section, there's like a more of an intermediate side to it. There's on that intermediate side on River Right, you come around a big bend, and if you run, there's like I don't know if you've ever been to Whitewater Center, but it's like the whitewater is made up of these big blue bricks that they stack on top of each other, and the water kind of like wants to funnel down to the left. But if you boof that brick real hard, you just slip right over it and boof down into it. Problem is, you kind of land in like 2 foot of water, but it's not a
Oh
super big drop.
geez.
Probably like a 3 foot drop. So if you don't boof it, you're gonna piton, but whatever, 3 foot piton.
I don't know. I pitoned the first time that I can remember on Fikes in West Virginia. That's a class 4 small micro creek. I've never pitoned before, and I went for a boof, went right into a rock, and I was like, "Ow, that fucking hurts."
Yeah, and we kind of talked about Jackson outfitting last time. Um, But like one thing I will say about like Soul and Jackson Outfitting is like the bulkhead with the rope system. If you really think about it, if you were going to piton in a boat, that would be the system to do it on because you're probably not going to, like, if you're going to do any really high pitoning, you're probably not going to break your legs and shit. Like, it's going to mess you up, but like rope system's going to give
Oh, that's a good point.
under extreme force versus, versus the Piranha bulkhead that's locked in and you're throwing all that weight into it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just mostly use the Jacksons because once again, lazy outfitter. It's easy to just to pull those strings, but then again, those strings come undone easily, and you might have to adjust them 5 times on the same run.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one thing that like Wave Sport and Liquid Logic and even Piranha. Piranha outfitting is not the best. I like the sturdiness of it, but the comfort's not really there. I think Liquid Logic really has it right. You've got sturdy outfitting that's yet pretty damn comfortable.
Yeah, the last one I paddled, I think, was the Party Brap.
Yeah,
And that was a lot of fun. I don't see those out much anymore, but the Party Brap, super comfortable, super fast, easy to turn, not very squirty or playful, but it's a nice river runner slicey boat.
yeah, they do a good job with outfitting. That's so far. I think that like that's probably the most comfortable outfitting. Um, we'll see. I think outfitting is really what sells boats at the end of the day. Let's just be real. Like if you're not comfortable in it, you're not going to want to paddle it.
I don't know, because a lot of people hate piranha outfitting, but they love the boat.
Well, see, and I'll say this though, like if you have ever like looked at anyone who paddles piranha out like piranha boats, most of the outfitting is self-made. They've foamed out their own hip pads, they've replaced the back bends. You know they're going in and doing it all themselves. I know I did with my Scorch.
Yeah.
I think the Scorch is like one of my favorite boats of all time, but the outfitting was ass.
Yeah, I paddled piranhas. The Fusion was my first. Then I went to a Milan large, then a Milan medium, and the outfitting was so bad. But it was a lot of fun. Good learner boats.
Yeah, and I will say that like I'm really hoping that like Wave Sport will make getting outfitting from them more accessible now. It's been kind of hard to do in the states for a little bit, but I'd love to get some like thigh hookers for this recon that we have because that's been our big thing is like with the way that my wife has to like fit herself into the boat. There's nothing to really lock onto her thighs,
Huh.
and I thought about making some possibly out of an old boat, but
Where's Wave Sport from?
so if I remember correctly, I think it's a European boat company, but
Okay.
so like for some reason they just kind of dipped off the market here in the states. Like you stopped being able to buy
Yeah,
stuff.
all you see is the old school ones like the Big Easy, the Easy, all those slicey boats.
Yeah, her recon I think is like her recon like a 2017 model, 2018 something like that. I believe. I'm not for sure, but yeah, we would love to get some thigh hookers for them, and they make thigh hookers for them, but it's like you can't order. You have to find a rep. I think there's one rep that we found
Huh.
when we reached said that it would be after the first of the year before they could order anything for us. So
People love the think they make the whiteout?
yeah,
Yeah, people love the whiteout outfitting.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty comfortable. I mean, I think Wave Sports makes pretty decent outfitting. It's not bad. It's somewhere between it's closer in comfort wise to Liquid Logic than Piranha, but I would argue that it's a kind of a thing of its own. It's pretty good. Yeah. But yeah, kind of like you said, for new boaters, Jackson's really not a bad way to go. Just until you kind of find out how you like to feel in a boat, and then you can always take that knowledge and go into a different boating or a different brand.
Exactly. If you go to a lot if you look at a lot of the kayaking schools, most of them use Jackson boats. And I think a lot of that's because it's so easy to outfit, so you don't have to continuously adjust the bulkhead and all the other outfitting. You can just pull the strings and be done with it and do it pretty easily and quick.
With your new Jackson, so what did you get?
I got a medium Nirvana, and I love that it's my favorite color, which is pink. I think
Oh, I
that's
love
what
it.
really sold it.
Yeah, that's my wife's favorite color. So
It's
like
the
I'm sure you've seen
best.
her.
Oh yeah,
So she's got a new shred ready helmet coming for Christmas that's pink. So
that's awesome.
RV sweep protection rather. I said sweep.
Yeah, I had to get the sweet protection pink helmet. I custom ordered a PFD from the UK. That was pink. Um, what else? My pink boat now. I spray painted my paddle pink.
So
I tried to paint my rescue PFD pink, but painting on what's that material? Nylon, I think, is very difficult.
do you ever feel like one day you're gonna wake up and like Dane Jackson's gonna be breathing on the back of your neck, and you're gonna be like,
I hope so.
"Yeah, I know." You're like
Oh my
Jackson.
god!
Wake up one day and
You stole my color.
you're like, "Hey, bro, chill the fuck out, please."
Well, at one point I was messaging him like fairly frequently, trying to get him to sell me his boat.
I'm assuming that you never got a message back.
No, I think at one point I might have gotten blocked, but I don't remember if that's true or not. It might just be making up things.
He was like, "Look, dude, I'm not letting you sniff the outfitting of my boat."
Well, actually, I think I ended up messaging Emily at one point about it, and I don't remember her response. And then I was paddling Stony Creek in Pennsylvania, and someone was in a pink rock star. I was like,
Hmm.
dude, I'm following this guy. So I found him in an eddy, and I think he bought it from Dane. I was like, you want to sell it? And he was like, I just got it. I was like, damn it.
Yeah, I
You
saw
don't know
one
how.
not. Um, I guess I saw one probably like 3 or 4 months back at the Nanahala.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a this girl traded her brand new Jackson playboat for a pink one. Like, and it was like used too, man. Like it had
Like
spent its time.
color is a novelty.
Yeah, so it is what it is. Yeah, I was like, I get it. Fair enough. Whatever.
It's nice that they made the Nirvana in pink, which
Well, so
is
you'll be really happy with my Bigfoot choice because I got the Big Bang and it's like black and pink. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked.
I hear the outfitting in the soul boats are very interesting. Like there's a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, I'd say well, there's no more moving pieces than what you're going to get in a Jackson. It's like it's on steroids. Like it's Jackson outfitting, but on steroids and a lot nicer. Like the way it locks and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's not
There's one
so.
boat I went in. I always say the name wrong. Varus, I think it's
Mhm,
Varus. Um, their bulkhead. I forget the model. The bulkhead, the actually tilts forward
mhm.
as like a way to like let your feet breathe a little bit in case they're going numb, so you could stretch them out, and just like a comfort thing, I guess. And it was an interesting thing that I've never seen in another boat where they could literally just tilt forward.
Yeah, and I guess it would make sense that you would really need to shift your weight into your heels anyway, like if you're ever doing anything. So.
Yeah, when you're doing those big boosts and you want to go, or big waterfalls and you want to go like spear the water with your paddle.
But I've also like noticed like just playing around in the playboat in some of these holes and some of these waves, like you'll sit right on the foam right before you drop down into it, and sometimes that like having that paddle stroke can throw you off a little bit. And so I've noticed that like if you just push your feet down into the boat, it'll slip you down in there and it keeps you really well balanced. So I'm getting more into the playboating side of things than I ever have before. So
I think people who either start out play boating or get into it pretty early on are going to be better off with their comfort level in the river. I like to
yeah.
say kayaking is 80% mental and 20% physical. It's a pretty lazy man sport because if you're doing technique right, like the water and rapids should be doing most of the work. Um,
Yeah.
so most of it's mental. Like you're constantly pushing yourself. And the nice thing about kayaking, it's kind of like a meditation where you're forced to be in the moment because if you're not, you're gonna mess up and you can get yourself hurt that way. So you're always being forced to stay in the moment.
Yeah, and it was like interesting that you say that, like with the technique, because I had a paddler that I was when I first started boating on my friend Will. He told me he was like, man, if you can't ferry across an entire river with one paddle stroke, then you've done it wrong. And he's incredible. Like he's spot on with that because now that I've gotten older and I've started to like notice like, hey, I get exhausted a lot faster. Maybe I'm a little less in shape than I was when I was 16. I search for that one good paddle stroke into that ferry that's just going to carry you, maybe two max. But he's right; it's definitely doable, and if your techniques are right, the sport's so much easier, and it's a
Hmm.
late to do it if your technique's right. But if your technique's wrong, you're going to spend most of your day really, really struggling.
And that's why it's so important to find quality instructors and people to start your foundation off right. And I am
Mm-hmm.
so thankful for the club that I joined. But there's definitely like advice and stuff that I took from that gave me a horrible foundation that I had to unlearn later. But I'm so thankful that I was introduced through this sport through a club. And I think clubs get a bad reputation, and there's good reason for that. There's a lot of drama that occurs in clubs, and cliques form and stuff like that, which is fine. You want to paddle with people that you enjoy paddling with. Clubs once had their place. They really don't anymore with Facebook. It was more of a thing in the early 90s, 2000s before all this technology.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is like, I hope that if any new boaters are listening, like, we are not crapping on clubs. Like, the both of us started in clubs, and clubs can be a super healthy thing under the right administration.
Mm-hmm.
But just it's like I hate to be this way, but if your club's being ran by some guy in his 20s, just a heads up, it's probably in time going to like implode on itself.
Yeah, you want
Uh,
people with that experience. I was just talking to someone earlier who was like, people, when they're looking for instructors, they want people with experience, not just some 18-year-old kid who got training last week that's part of an outfitter. They want people with that real experience, and that's mostly people who are older. And that's not to say there's not great instructors that are younger.
yeah, but I think maturity on and off river is super important. Like I think back to like when I was like 16, 17, I was boating pretty decent at the time. Like um, I've taught multiple people how to roll, just like your basics. But like in all honesty, I really had no business teaching anyone. It's just back then the sport wasn't very beginner friendly, and it is now. I think that like in general, for the most part, the sport is very beginner friendly now. But it used to not be. It used to be nut up or shut up, get in here, learn what it's like to drown a couple times, and you won't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, most people are pretty good at judging what they can take you on. Very welcoming, always willing to lend gear or even sell you gear for way cheaper than they bought it, or even
Mhm.
sometimes just give away gear. I know if I bought gear, I'd rather just sell it super cheap to someone that I know is probably going to stick to the sport, and so they want to stay in it, and then hopefully pay it forward. And that's a good movie to watch. Pay it forward.
Well, and like kind of like you're saying, like with that being said, like don't expect handouts either. Like these
Yeah.
people, the gear is expensive. People work really hard for it. There's been a couple times where I saw a boat that I really, really wanted and really would like to have. I just wasn't necessarily financially in the spot to buy it for what they were priced it, like what the other boater priced it at. And like I was just very forward. I reached out, was like, "Hey, I'd love to paddle this boat. This is how much money I currently have. It's not going to hurt my feelings if you say no. I just wanted to kind of let you know that I was interested and if you would be willing to sell it for this price." But like I've noticed that in the past year when I've tried to sell boats, I had my Scorch. I boated like 5 times and ran into some financial issues. Had to sell it. Um, but like it's a brand new boat, and I posted it up for sale, and people were like offering me like $100 for it, $600, and I'm like, dude, and then you act all offended when I say no or I sell it to someone else who paid me what I asked for it. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, man.
These boats, especially piranhas, I think piranhas are the most expensive right now. It's like $1,700 for a new boat. Offering someone $500 for barely used boat is just disrespectful, and it makes you think that they're just gonna buy it to resell it anyways.
Yeah,
And also, when people lend you gear, just being respectful of that gear, and treating it better than your own. Honestly, like if like
no,
don't be brushing other people's skirts up against rocks or chucking people's paddles. I know someone who, when he was dating someone, he would let her use his paddle and she'd just chuck it on land, and actually I think she broke it at one point from just abusing it. And it's like, those paddles are like $400 new. Like, treat it with some respect.
yeah, and like I personally, I've just kind of learned not to loan out gear unless I'm okay with just going ahead and giving it to the person.
Yep.
Like I have backup gear, but I don't tell everybody that I have backup gear because it's for, like, frankly, it's for me. Now, if another boater was in a bad spot, let's say they ripped a skirt and we had 2 days of boating planned, I'm probably going to lend mine. But like, unfortunately, I've been burned a couple of times. So I just usually I don't unless I'm just going to give it to you.
Yeah, it's kind of like what they say: if you lend a family member money, don't expect it to be paid back.
Yeah.
It's like, just if you're gonna give out gear, expect it to be not taken the best care of. But if it is, great. And if they lose it, well, that sucks. But kind of expect it not to be given back.
Yeah.
But most
Like,
people, it's gonna go well, and you're gonna get a return in quality condition. So it's not all boo hoos. It's most of the time it's gonna be treated just well.
yeah, some of you guys need to learn to also wash your gear. If I paddle next to you and you smell like piss, I'm going to know you didn't rinse your gear. Disgusting. Rinse your fucking gear when you get off the water.
Yeah, and it's just gonna make your gear last longer, anyways. And if
Yeah.
also along the lines of borrowing gear, if you're borrowing gear but that person's not going on the trip and you're expected to like kind of return it later, wash it and dry it before you return it. Don't return it to them smelling of the river or smelling of your own stank. Make sure you're washing and taking care of it.
Yeah, it wasn't even that long ago. I loaned a spray skirt to somebody. And then after we got off the river, they were like laughing about how when they have to piss on the river, they just piss in their boat. And I'd watched them combat roll multiple times. So I was like, thanks for giving me back this piss skirt. I really appreciate that.
Just shitty.
Dude, that was disgusting.
Oh,
Yeah.
I bet. Let's see. I think some of this we hit on last time. Romanticizing beating and carnage and swims. Oh, here's a good one. Um, in what ways have you seen the whitewater community help with environmental efforts? For me, I've seen river cleanups. I think the biggest thing is American Whitewater constantly fighting for access and for dams to be ripped down and advocating on our behalf. And I think that's why it's important, even if you don't use like American Whitewater, which you probably will, or ACA, or just organizations that do conservation, even if you're not going to take advantage of what they have to offer, at least supporting it or pushing it to be supported, because they're the ones fighting for access and making sure stuff is clean and have nice put-ins with bathrooms and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100% on that. Like, American Whitewater is constantly keeping government in check with their dams, because like if you're new to boating, you might not know this, but like dams can destroy ecosystems. They can really mess up like with boating and fishing, and so American Whitewater is I mean just phenomenal. Any involvement you can do with them, do it. I recommend it. But yeah, they're constantly fighting for your rights, so just kind of keep that in mind. Um,
And I think that's
yeah.
something I want to get involved in eventually. Is like there's like a safety commission, I think, with ACA that you can join. SEIC. Every instructor automatically gets a part of that and can attend the meetings as well. And I haven't, but I definitely should get into that, and as well as like, I guess, fighting for access and
Yeah.
different initiatives like that. Just being involved in the organizations and the boards, because it also helps get your name out, and then people know you and they see you doing this stuff, and they're gonna want to paddle with you. The more you can do, and the more stuff you can
Mhm.
fight for, the better.
Yeah, I'm
So
very lucky to come from Tennessee. So Tennessee is really big on preserving their national forest and like, preserving ecosystems. Like they've got, I mean, it's like, and then North Carolina is very similar, very big on like Cherokee National Forest. There, it's beautiful. Now there are a couple dams there, but the dams work very closely with the recreation communities. They're giving us release schedules. Like we know what they're doing when they're doing it. They stay pretty true to their schedule with TVA, and then shoot, it skipped me who does the Nanahala now, but
and and we wouldn't have these coordinated releases if it wasn't for these organizations or these individuals who have worked with the companies that own the dams. And it's like we'd all obviously would rather just not have any dams and then rely on natural flow. Or maybe dams are nice in that regard, just having some rivers be consistent. Um,
Yeah. See, that's the thing is like,
it's
frankly, without a dam, there's times during the summer when the Ocoee wouldn't be touchable. Like I've just let people know it would be dry.
Yeah,
Uh,
so it's kind of a
these,
double-bladed sword with dams. Is
I think,
some
I think,
rivers would be fucked without them, and some would be a lot better.
yeah, yeah, I think it's working pretty well for the community right now with the way it is. Um, so I think that's probably my big thing is there's been several clubs that have even done like river cleanups. River cleanups are huge. I don't believe that you should be a boater and not at least for taking one a year. Like river cleanups are huge. There's somebody out there busting their ass to make sure that the tires and trash get pulled up out of the river. You're gonna enjoy that river. If you're gonna enjoy that river more than once a year, you need to be helping clean it up. Whether you do a cleanup with a big community or you just every now and again go down to the river yourself and just pick up some trash.
Yep. And one of the rivers, the local rivers, the Lower Gunpowder, I think they just posted something a few months ago about cutting access to the takeout. And in my opinion, what I've seen, this is the result of people leaving behind trash. And it's not kayakers, it's just other people on the river that come down there. They have a barbecue and they leave everything behind. And
Mm-hmm.
then it affects access to us. So, and I'm guilty of this. Um, I had to tell him to go away. um, I'm guilty of this. Is I don't want to pick up other people's trash. I'm like, it's not my problem, but it becomes our problem because then things like this can happen where even if it wasn't your doing, people leaving trash behind, now you're affected. Now your takeout's closed and you can't
Yeah,
use it and you have to find somewhere else.
yeah, I
So,
think it's big. Like my granddad used to tell me all the time, "Don't shit where you eat, and always make sure that nobody else is shitting there too." So, like make sure it's cleaned up. Even if you didn't do it, what's it going to hurt for you to throw that bit of trash into the bed of your truck on your way home from the river and drop it into your own dumpster? Like, what's it going to hurt, man? It's
yeah.
not.
Yeah, I'm not expecting like people to go and like if there's a fridge to pick it up out of the river and or tires, but if it's like a water bottle or trash bag, just pick it up.
Yeah.
And I haven't really seen many honestly coordinated river cleanups recently. So if you don't see them, start one in your own community, and that goes for hosting events, just to practice like swiftwater skills. I know me and this other guy started doing that weekly with our local club. We haven't been able to get other people into it, but we'll just keep meeting ourselves and working on our own skills until people decide to come out and join us.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one thing about clubs is you need to find clubs that are active. Some
Hmm.
clubs, when COVID hit, they continued on being active, and that was awesome, and actually grew from it. And some clubs just stopped doing anything and just they shot themselves in the foot and completely died out. And now you never see any events happening.
Hmm.
And that's something where you can be the person to step up and say, "Hey, I'll host an event. Um, come out." And you don't even have to just because you're running the event or the river meetup doesn't mean you have to be liable for everyone there. You can just plan in the logistics, find someone to lead, or you just come together and everyone watches out for each other. You go into groups, but you don't have to be liable for everyone because that's one of the reasons I hesitated myself was running trips is because I didn't want to be liable. I didn't want if anything happened that went bad and the outcome was not the greatest for it to be on me.
Hmm.
So you can just organize those trips without having to be the person that's fully responsible. Well, thanks guys for joining us. Hope to see you guys next week when we talk about whatever our next topic is for next week. We kind of just come up with topics throughout the week and what we just want to talk about or what else you guys suggest. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, Spotify, whatever you're watching, or just leave comments of what stuff you guys want to talk about, or if you want to join the podcast and hop on with us live, or whatever you want to do, just let us know in the comments, and that's the best way to talk to us. And you can also reach out to me or Sam on Facebook. We're more than happy to talk.